Welcome to Fitness Casual. We help you ditch diets and build habits no matter how busy you are. I'm Andrew Hayes, and with me is the always well-rested Kat Best.
Hello, everyone.
Kat, do you tape your mouth at night when you sleep?
I do tape my mouth. I actually started mouth tape maybe like 6-7 years ago, and then stopped for a little while. I liked it, and that's when I was like in a biohacking phase. So I would think I was like an early adopter of that. And then it just kind of fell off, and my sleep was always fine. And then I started probably in the past like 6 months getting more into it. But I gotta say, my motivation for mouth tape is not to sleep better. I think that's a great like side effect, but it's more for the jawline, and I don't want my face to change into what mouth breathers look like. If you pull up a before and after or a side by side of someone who's like a chronic mouth breather versus nose breather, it's very obvious how it changes the face. And so from an aesthetic perspective, that's probably more of why I do it. But I do pay attention to my sleep every day when I look at like my Apple Health report. And I do think I have like fewer wake ups once I started doing it. Which is awesome. And it's also really funny when you like wake up in the middle of the night and maybe you want to say something and then you can't. Like it's just, I really like it as a habit, and I think it's just kind of fun, but definitely effective.
I also do it, and I remember hearing about it from, all the biohacking people and thinking it was weird. And so I asked my dentist, and he was like, not only do I endorse it, but I also do it myself. So and there's also a lot of research now. We have a few clients who are in the speech therapy space. We should ask them about this, but there's also a lot of research now around mouth breathing and how much it affects like your orthodonture, your crooked teeth, and all of this stuff. And so, I think breathing through your mouth, especially at night, is not talked about enough. And it changed my life. I track my sleep, which we'll talk about today, and huge difference for me as well. So does it look weird? Sure. But, I also look weird when I'm squatting too much and I'm like making weird faces, and it's good for me too. So that's great.
I use hostage tape, which I also think is funny because of the name. So it's like part of a reason why once I heard that, I was like, ooh, I should get back to mouth taping just because I love the branding of that one.
But I don't use them now. I should, but I will plug them. Fun story about hostage tape. I was at a nutrition conference last year, Coaching Con, and the CEO was there, the founder.
Oh.
And he has a crazy story. I believe it's on their website, but he was burnt out, worked at some corporate job, and was just basically a bad husband and a bad dad. These are his words, not mine. And got divorced and was kicked out of his house. And then he ended up discovering this amazing feat of taping your mouth shut and started hostage tape. And he started using it, and he was sleeping better, and his mental health improved, and his energy improved, and he started this company and made a lot of money, and then got back together with his wife and kids.
Wow.
So he's like, when I say that taping my mouth shut changed my life, he's like, I'm not kidding. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really cool to be a founder who lives your brand. Obviously, we do that. Mm-hmm. So I really like that company. I think it's cool. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. Well, in the topic of weird things to do while you sleep, we're going to start with some sleep tips today. Most of these you've never heard before. So we're going to start with a few hacks. And I usually hate that word. I think it's cheesy, but I would categorize these as hacks, the first few that we're going to talk about, and then we'll move into some more lifestyle tips as well. All of these are important. And I want to address something up front, which is the wellness triangle of diet, sleep, and exercise. And I think you often hear what's most important. Is it diet? Is it exercise? And it really depends. And sleep's in there too. For some people, sleep is the only thing you're missing that's going to unlock all of your goals. For some people, it's diet. But what is applicable to everyone is you need to get all three in a good place. You're always going to be improving one or the other. But if you can do all three even moderately well, your health will be in an incredible place. So it's very important that we cover this topic today.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, just in terms of qualifications, I have read all of the sleep books and listened to all of the sleep podcasts. I've been on kind of a 10-year journey myself. There's a guy named Matt Walker, Dr. Matt Walker, who goes by the Sleep Doctor. He's been on all the big podcasts, Huberman and Joe Rogan and stuff, and his book is a bestseller. I actually saw him once at a concert in San Francisco, and had like a real fanboy moment. And I don't really care about celebrities that much, but I was like elbowing my friends and I was like, guys, that's the sleep doctor. And they're all like, you're such a loser. Who is that? So I unfortunately didn't have the courage to go up to him, mostly because I don't like to bother celebrities in person. You know, if you're living in New York, Kat, I'm sure you know, it's like you see them quite a bit. They're just trying to live their life. But I was wondering if he was kind of on the cusp of like, is he famous enough that people stop him and say hi? Especially because he's like more of an author and a voice than he is a face. So I do wonder to this day, Matt, if you're listening, would you have appreciated me saying hi, or were you just trying to enjoy the show? So we'll never know. But a lot of what we'll talk about today comes from Dr. Matt Walker's teachings and then a bunch of other really appreciated and qualified people in the space. So hack number 1 is your amygdala. And this is something that, Kat, you know well from our coaching too. But this is your emotional control center and in your brain. And part of what happens at night is your amygdala goes crazy. It's just part of the sleep process. We don't totally understand why, but this manifests itself in you waking up in the middle of the night and remembering something that you didn't do, or overthinking something that already happened and having like a true panic attack in your bed. And every single person has done this. And it's like, oh, I forgot to send that email, or I can't believe I said that thing to my neighbor, or whatever it is. That's your amygdala just like going crazy in the middle of the night. And the reason this is a hack is because you have to teach yourself that this is not important. It's 2 a.m. or whatever time it is. All you need to do is go back to sleep. One thing that you can do is grab a piece of paper and write it down, or less than ideally, you can grab your phone and write it down, but try not to use your phone. Because you have to just clear your mind of this thing that I promise you doesn't matter. And I know that it feels in the moment like it's so real because I've had this so many times, and Kat, I'm sure you have too, but you just have to put it out of your mind. Your brain is kind of playing tricks on you, and it's not important. And I promise you the next morning you will remember, and you will realize that it's not a big deal, and you will take care of it then. So hack number 1, when your amygdala is going crazy in the middle of the night, write it down, or just remind yourself. If you don't remember the word amygdala, that's okay. But be like, you know what? Andrew and Kat told me this is not a real emotion, because it's not.
Yeah, I love that. Or I would call that brain dumping, maybe. I'm also like, I have a certification in sleep, stress, and recovery.
There we go. I forgot to plug your credentials. Sorry, Kat, go ahead.
But a big part of what they talked about was the brain dump, because a lot of what messes people sleep up is their stress. And a way to get rid of stress is to kind of either write it all down, put it on a piece of paper, and then it's like you pick that back up in the morning when you wake up. Like that can be, a technique. Or, thinking about all of the things you have to do and then, working that out and then, try to shut that off overnight. But if you find that you're waking up in the middle of the night, it's probably stress, especially if you're having racing thoughts. Whatever that is that's stressing you out, that's also a sign of like some deeper inner work maybe you have to do to address, usually I think our most like honest insecurities come up in the middle of the night. So do a little deep dive also into like what that is. It could be interesting for you to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Yep. Yes. The amygdala is the action that is causing you to feel that way. But in terms of the tips for you, it is stress management. You should not be waking up. So we'll cover that in the lifestyle section, but just want to make sure you all know that it's not real. Ignore that feeling. Your brain is playing tricks on you. But number 2 is you playing tricks on your brain right back, and that is paradoxical intention, which is a mouthful, but that is just this concept of the harder you try to sleep, the harder it's going to be to fall asleep. And it also works both ways. So if you've ever, this happened to me in college all the time, especially because I was hungover, but I'd be bored in class and I'd be falling asleep and I'd be trying so hard to stay awake, and that would make me more tired. And so it works both ways. If you try to tell your brain that you want to go to bed, you just get sleep anxiety and you stay up more. And so that's called paradoxical intention, which is just the opposite of what you're trying to do. And one way to fix that is to be genuinely excited about being awake in the middle of the night, which I know is hard. And so that's why this is many different pieces coming together to fix your sleep. But with paradoxical intention, it's good to find an activity that you can do in the middle of the night that maybe you don't have time for during the day. So for me, I really like crossword puzzles. I do them on my phone, which is less than ideal, but I don't look at anything else. I just do the crossword puzzle. And I just don't have time in a day right now with kids and the job and exercise and everything to like sit down and do a crossword puzzle with no distraction for 30 minutes. And so if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm stressed about something that I shouldn't be stressed about, but I am, I just do a crossword puzzle. And honestly, it's really nice. Mm-hmm. And then I find myself after about 20 minutes is what the research says, you will be tired again and you can just go back to sleep. Books, yoga, meditation is a really good one. I know everyone wants to meditate and never finds the time. There's a bunch. Stretching. Honestly, there's a lot of ways to spend 20 minutes in the middle of the night. And if you just take 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it's really not removing that much from your sleep. Like you can give yourself 8 hours and lose 30 to 45 minutes in the middle of the night and fall right back asleep, and you're still getting your quality sleep throughout the night. So you shouldn't worry about being up in the middle of the night, especially if you're going to use that time wisely.
Absolutely. So I am sleep trained. I have taught myself how to sleep very well for years on end. It's extremely important to me. I used to get up at like 4:30 in the morning, so that's why like my sleep needed to be very regimented. Now I don't, but when I had my most recent surgery, my sleep was horrible. I was up in the middle of every single night, 1 to 2 hours, just in a lot of pain. I could fall asleep and then the pain would wake me up. And my response to being awake was like, I was pissed. I was angry. I was also like, this is going to mess up my day the next day. Like I created a story about how poorly I'm going to function now that I'm not sleeping. Especially for someone who cares so much. Like my identity was like, I'm a good sleeper. Will I ever sleep again?
You're catastrophizing. Right? Yeah, it's very common.
God.
Yeah.
It became like such a thing, and I would fight it. I would just kind of lay there in bed, get up, walk around, and then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna read. And I was very like anti look at phone in the middle of the night, but I would put my like blue blockers on, my like orange glasses, and I would read, and I would honestly fall asleep in like 4 pages. Like I was back out. It was just like, but I had to almost like be like, oh, okay, I'm up, I'm gonna read, back to sleep. But the days where I was just pissed and I was angry and annoyed, like I was not falling back asleep. And then the next day I'm mad about it, but when I was just reading, falling back, maybe wake up, read again, like I was just a lot more like, at least I'm getting some reading in, and it's only temporary. Once I started telling myself like it's temporary, this is not my permanent state, like I'm okay, it also got a lot better. And then when I started sleeping through the night again, I was so grateful for it. It was like, oh, finally. But like that little moment in time was rough, but I definitely made it worse by catastrophizing.
Yep.
Everything.
Which is so common.
Yeah.
Are you fiction or nonfiction, or it depends?
Nonfiction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I need to read more fiction. That's like a goal of mine. I'm such a I like the facts. I like the self-help books. I like all the growth stuff, and I just need like a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have quite the active books channel in our All to Life community. Shout out to our All to Life community on WhatsApp. Join it. I think the link is in the show notes. The reason I ask about fiction versus nonfiction is because I mostly only read nonfiction as well, and sometimes it's really good because it's very dry and boring and puts me right back to sleep. But sometimes it also, like if it's a business book, then my mind starts spinning about the business, and I'm like, okay, well, I can't read this at night because now I'm just wide awake thinking about tomorrow. So you have to, yes, reading is a great one. I have a Kindle. I like that because it's backlit. Obviously, you can also use a very low light. Don't turn on your overhead lights, of course. But find a book that is good for you, or a category of books that is good for you, that you're genuinely excited to read, but is also in that sweet spot of you will eventually fall back asleep. But yeah, the catastrophizing, the sleep anxiety is so real.
Yeah. And
it's hard. And I think that's why a lot of people get the medications, because it can kind of break that cycle. Then, of course, you build dependency on those. And, you know, we're not going to get too much into the Lunestas of the world and stuff because we're not experts there. But I do understand why people seek medical help for their sleep, because if you are catastrophizing and being anxious so much, it's really hard to reset. So hopefully these tips help today. How's your sleep now? Better? Shoulders better?
Yeah, I'm sleeping through the night. Yeah, I would say maybe about a month ago, I started really noticing I was like good to go every single night. Mouth taping, I'm good.
It's awesome. Yeah, and it works both ways. Once you find what works for you, and I think we're both in this place now, I've had many issues, you know, with kids and job stress, but it's like I go to bed every night and I know I'm going to get 7 hours. Mm-hmm. Even if I get woken up, like my daughter woke me up the other night, I was up for an hour and a half, and it's like I still got a good night's sleep because my habits are dialed and I trust myself instead of, you know, stressing myself out. But that's easier said than done, and that's why we have a lot of tips to share today. Mm-hmm. All right, number 3. So number 1 is your amygdala. We'll work on, you know, chronic stress in a minute, but in the meantime, tip number one is ignore the panic emotion that you feel in the middle of the night about that thing. It's not important. Number two is paradoxical intention. Find something you're excited to do. Number three is everyone's least favorite tip, but it's so important, which is do not drink alcohol within at least 3 hours of bedtime. And I would say in general, if you can go several days without it as well, of course, your health will improve significantly, but your sleep significantly as well. There's a lot of research that the alcohol stays in your system for several days and affects your sleep. And so if you've ever done a dry January or a couple weeks off, one of the things you hear people say the most is like, my sleep is just so much better. And so I think most people now have started to realize that if you have a drink at 9 p.m. and go to bed at 9:30, your sleep sucks. But I think people don't realize just how far that window can extend to a 5 p.m. drink, or yesterday you had multiple drinks, or you're on 3 days in a row of a couple drinks. And if you can just really extend that, whether it's time before bed or several days in a row, your sleep will improve significantly. And this really helps with decreasing your alcohol consumption too, because it is hard. But if you feel yourself sleeping better, that can be a reason to be like, you know what, let me do one more night without a drink so I can get one more good night of sleep, and I'll do it tomorrow. And you'd be surprised how quickly that snowballs.
I think a lot of people think drinking will help them sleep. I think it might help you fall asleep, but it's not helping you stay asleep or get good quality. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Maybe it's, helps you get a little bit tired, whatever, relaxed, which is fine. But then if you're waking up 3 hours later, like wide awake, it's not good.
Yep. And I think most people have started to realize that too. And in conversations I've had of just, 2 a.m, 3 a.m, like shooting out of bed, that's the alcohol. I personally have noticed that more with wine than anything else. So if you've ever hung around me, you know that I drink wine once a year, because that one glass just crushes me, whereas I can get away with beer more. So your mileage may vary. You might have the same thing as me, but find what works for you. Of course, hydrate. But the alcohol before bedtime, it's tough. I know it's a buzzkill. I get it. Yeah. I'm just saying, if your sleep is struggling, don't ignore this one. I see it quite often.
And day drinking, you guys. It's more fun.
That's right.
I don't drink, but I remember day drinking was way more fun. You go to bed at the normal time, you sleep. It's great.
It is great. Yeah. Give it a few hours to metabolize. It does make a huge difference. I know we talked about taking several days off, but just, drinking at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, having a meal, and then going to bed at 9 or 10 is so much better than drinking at 8:30 or 9 p.m. Yeah. Day drink. Please. You have my permission. Summer's around the corner, I promise. Okay. Similar note, number 4. Is coffee/caffeine. I say coffee because coffee has such a higher caffeine content than tea or soda, but we'll put all of caffeine in this category, which is caffeine has a very long half-life, which if you're not familiar, we should have some of our pharmacy clients on to explain it, but just medical term of how long it takes for that drug to deplete from your system. And caffeine has been shown to have a half-life of up to 12 hours. So some people are affected by this, some people are not. Kat, you magically are not. I have a couple other friends who I've seen drink coffee at 7 p.m. and good for them. But you can have a coffee at 2 in the afternoon and feel buzzed for an hour or two, the jitters, whatever, and then feel totally normal at 9 p.m., but you still have a lot of caffeine in your system. And so if you are lying in bed at night wanting to fall asleep but you feel awake, think if you've had any caffeine that afternoon, because even though you don't feel that effect, your body still might. It's a very studied, very proven thing on 12 hours plus of caffeine. So I personally don't drink any caffeine after lunch, rarely maybe a soda or something. But coffee is usually like 200 milligrams of caffeine. Soda is like, I think 40. So that's a big, it's like drinking 5 sodas in the afternoon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would not drink coffee in the afternoon if it messed up my sleep. Like I would be very eager to cut that out, but I am someone who it just doesn't. I don't even feel a buzz from coffee, so it's kind of a bummer. It's definitely just a routine for me, but I like the taste. I like the ritual. I like the taste. I think the caffeine is kind of what comes last. I'm also someone who I used to drink a ton of pre-workout and not really feel anything either. I felt like the other stuff, the niacin, would give me the red rash all over my body, but the caffeine never has been something that bothered me so much. And that's also genetically, that's a big component there. So I think you just have to be very honest about your coffee habit and how it is impacting you.
Yep. Everyone's different. Coffee after dinner is a very common thing, especially Italian culture. And I think maybe French and others too. And Every time I go to dinner and I see someone ordered, I'm like, ooh, I'm like, I hope you know what you're doing. You might. This might be totally fine, or you might just be ruining all of tomorrow.
Andrew caught me making coffee once at 5 p.m. and he was like shook. He was like,
What are you
how
doing?
is this happening?
The goal at the end of the day, as always, within our program or in our podcast or whatever, is awareness, making informed decisions. If you have a coffee every day at 5 o'clock and you sleep well, then great. But if you're listening to this episode, chances are maybe you're trying to improve your sleep, and chances are this could be one that you don't think of because a coffee at 2 doesn't seem like something that would affect you at 10, but it can. It definitely can. Or you're special,
And
like Kat.
decaf coffee is very easy to find and make. So, and I think a lot of people, like, mentally, if you're aware of the caffeine's not there, maybe that would impact you. But I think placebo effect is very strong with decaf coffee. So that could always be one to switch to if you wanted to wean off a little bit. But also women who have hormonal imbalances or anyone who has like a metabolic condition usually are a lot more sensitive to caffeine. So sometimes those people, like not sleep related, it's just good to not have that at all in general, and it will help you feel better, which then will help you sleep better.
The Breville Barista Express, which is the product that Kat and I swear by to make lattes in your own house, is on sale. I think they have a new line out, which maybe I'll buy. But it makes a great decaf coffee. I know one of the reasons people hate on decaf is because it doesn't taste as good. I think that's changed generally, but when you make your own latte in your own house and you make it the way you like and you got some quality decaf beans, I can't even really tell the difference. And I do have a decaf coffee sometimes at night. It's a great point.
Yeah.
Okay. So I call those hacks, but we also have general lifestyle tips. I know that this is maybe a little less sexy, but very important to realize that your sleep is mostly determined by what you do during the day. Maybe almost exclusively outside of like a kid waking you up in the middle of the night or whatever. And so don't ignore these. We're going to go through some lifestyle tips as well. And these really can be the difference of you getting quality sleep and not.
So I think one place to start, I'm going to start with workouts. If you are working out too late in the day, sometimes that gets people a little too wired and will impact sleep. I personally am one of those people. I try to work out usually in like the first half of my day. I prefer it that way, but I have had phases where I had to do later in the day workouts with my Muay Thai training back in the day when there were only night classes. So I would train like 6 to 8 p.m. and then I am not sleeping. Like I am tired, but I'm not sleeping. And it drove me crazy. So I think like the timing of your workouts perhaps could be why you could be really wired if you are working out after work. Maybe working out in the morning isn't on the table, but I think it's usually better for sleep habits, but not if you are cutting off the sleep you need to wake up to work out. So that's kind of the fine line there. But working out in general does help improve sleep. And one thing if you're not tired at the end of the day, you should be. So if you're not, why? Maybe you're not physically exhausting yourself. If you're just mentally exhausted or burnt out from your kids, I think that is being tired. You need sleep. But I think physically being tired to where your body actually like needs the rest and you're just in that zone is much easier to fall asleep. So moving throughout the day, going on walks, all that stuff can really promote good sleep.
Yep.
And
for me, it's just cardio. That's what I found.
Yeah.
I can do strength training at 5, 6 p.m., but if I hop on the Peloton at dinner time, I'm up till midnight. Personally.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I think, cardio is definitely harder. And that kind of leads us into cortisol and are you eating enough before bed? Are you under eating? If you are under eating in general, or I'll say like even if you're in a caloric deficit because you want to lose fat, sometimes you get that 2, 3, 4 a.m. wake up where you're hungry. That definitely is a pattern that I see in people who are just eating too little. And even if your calories are appropriate, maybe we need to get a meal in closer to bedtime. And I know eating before bed is very controversial. Some people are like, I don't eat after 6 p.m. or dark, like whatever that means. That's definitely like no carbs after dark. Remember that used to be a thing? I don't think that matters at all if you are sleeping well. I think sometimes actually like a post-dinner something with protein, maybe like a yogurt, a protein shake, sometimes that helps people sleep better, recover more when they're sleeping. Casein protein is big for what people would drink or bodybuilders would have before going to bed because it's actually very slow digesting. So your body is like recovering more overnight. And I think that does help a lot of the cortisol spike wake ups, which is between 2 to 4 a.m. If you wake up consistently there, that's probably like cortisol, which isn't good because that's high stress. And that also may lead to belly fat accumulation, all sorts of other things, but maybe having a little bit of protein before bed could reduce that. So I think if you're someone who has a fear of eating before bed, but you don't sleep well, that could be something to try. Some people who eat with their kids tend to eat really early, like a 5:36, but if you're going to bed at 10, like that's a long stretch of time that you might get hungry during. So maybe having like an 8 or 9 p.m. little something could help you sleep better. So that's just, one good thing to think about. And then
that's our house, by the way. We eat early with the kids, and I would say Leah and I have snacks almost every night after dinner. Sometimes it's a shake. Sometimes for me, it's often a perfect bar. So good.
Nice.
But yeah, it's important to have that permission to eat, which I know is hard. I think if you're in our program, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you have not worked with a coach and you are hungry at night, I would say, for the love of God, ask someone for help. Please message Kat or myself or anyone else, because you shouldn't really be going to bed hungry, even if you're trying to lose weight. It just is a common mistake, and it's going to, for all the reasons you already laid out, set you back even more. With stress, with lack of sleep, with food relationship. I mean, it isn't normal to feel that way regularly, and so we can help with that if you need help there. But going to bed hungry is not something you should be doing often.
And if you're someone who likes dessert, a lot of my clients who like dessert, we try to work in macros at the end of the day for after dinner to fit a little something in. If you're not someone who eats dessert or wants something, then you need to make sure you're just eating enough at your other meals, but you're not like super low by end of the day. But yeah, you can definitely have a snack there. I think like unless acid reflux, that would be one thing. If eating too close to bedtime, that's where I would say people are bothered the most, because if you eat and then you go to lay flat, it can kind of travel up and down your throat. But I would say that's also maybe not just eating, but what you are eating before bed. And what you are eating in general does impact your sleep overall. So there are foods that do help promote good sleep. There are foods that are rich in tryptophan. That is an amino acid that's the precursor to serotonin, so it promotes relaxation and sleepiness. Turkey, chicken, and dairy contain the highest amount of tryptophan, so this is a common thing people say about Thanksgiving, that they're tired, like, oh, it's the turkey. But chicken has more tryptophan. People eat chicken all the time, so I would say like that's a myth. It's probably more of like the excessive carbohydrate consumption. But if you are eating foods rich in tryptophan, which are most proteins, so I would say just eat more proteins, that can definitely help promote good sleep. And then foods that also have magnesium, like leafy greens, dark chocolate, avocado, nuts, legumes, those also are really good for sleep. And magnesium is a really common supplement people will use to also promote good sleep or rest, relaxation. It kind of it's calming. So sometimes having a magnesium supplement in the morning or middle of the day, people notice that they get a little tired or whatever. So end of day is good for that one. Not telling you to go have it, but I know like magnesium is very popular amongst people. So if you are taking it, do it towards bedtime and you might notice more results as far as sleep quality. And there are obviously foods that do impair sleep. So the ultra-processed, high-sugar foods, those definitely can impact your sleep because they do disrupt your cortisol balance or blood sugar regulation. So if you're having a lot of sugar right before bed, you could probably expect like a wake up a few hours later or just not the best quality sleep. Also, spicy foods or high-fat foods tend to be disruptive for sleep. Not for everybody, but they can cause like GI issues. So there are some patterns there in research as far as like eating spicy foods before bed may not make you feel the best. But I think if you do eat spicy foods and you sleep fine, then don't worry about that too much. Obviously, alcohol and caffeine, which we talked about, those impair sleep. But I think inflammation in general, if you have a lot of inflammation, if you have chronic disease, if you have metabolic issues, you probably aren't sleeping all that well. And then just eating a good quality anti-inflammatory diet would be a place to start. You don't need to really incorporate really specific foods for your sleep because it's not that specific, but in general, just trying to reduce inflammation can definitely help your sleep overall. And water before bed could make you pee, right? A lot of people complain when they increase their water intake. I'm up all night peeing. I would say be better at timing your water. Like, don't drink a bunch of water right before bed. Maybe by 6 o'clock, try to hit your water goal for the day. So that's just a timing thing. You could drink a lot to start the day. But if you are waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and you just can go right back to sleep, I'm not bothered by it. Like, that's not the worst thing in the world. If you're waking up and then you're up, it's probably not that you have to pee. It's actually that cortisol spike, something else is naturally waking you up, but you just also have to use the bathroom. So you're kind of, and you're up, or I don't know, are you up? Are you checking your phone? That's what a lot of people do, is like, what time is it? Let me look at my phone. Oh, I have text messages. Like, that turns into not just you waking up to use the bathroom. It's like, what else are you doing when you're awake? If you are really concerned about that, that's where also an electrolyte, in your water per day. I noticed I used to wake up every single night to pee. I would go back to bed, so it didn't really bother me all that much. But the second I started using Element, like years ago, I stopped waking up. Like, I still don't wake up to go pee in the middle of the night. And I drink a lot of water. But I noticed like that. So clearly something about having an electrolyte per day helped with my hydration balance and absorption, and it stopped that from happening. And that was really cool to see, because it wasn't even something I was looking forward to happening, but it just worked out that way.
Yep. I get up most nights. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. I think the exercise plus your electrolyte balance, which you can also get from food. So if you're eating a balanced diet, that helps too with the water absorption. That will really help impact just chugging water and having it go right through you. But yes, a lot of people see with their water goal 75 ounces, 100 ounces, and they ignore it all day, and then they drink 60 ounces at 7 p.m., which I totally understand, like, good effort. But yes, try to move it up, because it will help. It's, you can only absorb so much at a time anyway.
And honorable mention, we need to mention environment. This is extremely important. You should be in a dark room. Cool. I think 68 degrees is like the magic temperature.
Yep.
That's what I set my thermostat to when I sleep, and it's on the cooler side, but I really, really like it, and I sleep wonderful. But you want a dark room. If your room isn't dark enough, have a sleep mask. Like, that's a really easy way to just make it dark. Earplugs. I think earplugs are clutch. I don't use them when I'm home, but if I'm traveling, I definitely use earplugs, because when I'm not home, I also can't sleep very well. If I'm somewhere weird or new or in a hotel, I'm not sleeping the best. It's just kind of how I am. But earplugs really do help shut off like sensory stuff. So your eyes are calm, your ears aren't hearing anything, mouth, like for breathing. If you have all of those things on, you're probably going to sleep much better. And I think like that's just a small hack that could make a really big difference.
Yeah. You laugh, but I'm the same. I got the whole routine: cold, dark. I do the sleep mask. I do a sound machine. So if you're a parent and you don't want to plug your ears, totally reasonable. But I can hear my kids and also have white noise, because the analogy that was explained to me, imagine you're a cave person. You're sleeping in a cave. Every day is life or death. There's, panthers trying to eat you and whatever else. And you're sleeping and you hear a loud noise, you're going to wake up. It's a survival skill. So you need to tune that out, especially if you're in New York City like Kat. What is there? Constant horns and
a lot of sounds.
You live right across from that center that's always having concerts and stuff too. You have to tune those out, because otherwise you're just going to be a very restless sleep. And so it's important to have that environment. And yeah, I look like a goofball when I go to bed at night with my sleep mask and my mouth taped and all that. But like, I feel great and life is good. So make fun of me all you want. Obviously, I'm at a bachelor party or something, I'm going to fall asleep on a couch, with my mouth open or something. But on a regular evening, I'm doing my routine and it's great.
Yeah. And routine itself is good for sleep. So it's like whatever you're doing, doesn't matter what you're doing. If you do it every day before bed, that's going to promote good quality sleep. I'm also a big fan of white noise. I have like a really nice Dyson fan that has like an oscillating breeze. So it's like I'm on the beach at night. It like kind of comes in. It's like the best breeze ever. It's not like a hardcore fan. It's lovely. So I have that going with my temperature. Yeah, I have a whole thing. But I sleep great, so I don't care.
Good. I love it. There's so many more we can do, but I do want to keep this to a reasonable time limit. One more that I wanted to add for environment is lights. And so this is studied, is the bright lights. So the sun, of course, tells your body it's daytime, nighttime, moon, whatever, tells your body that it's nighttime. And we have manufactured so much artificial light with televisions, with iPads, with phone screens, but of course with overhead lighting as well. We talked a little bit in our seasonal depression episode about screen time, and I think, Kat, you and I are pretty aligned. Like, screen time's not the worst thing if you're sleeping okay. You can get blue light glasses, you can turn on the red light filter, all that stuff. So I'm not anti-screen time. I use my phone at night. I'm not going to be hypocritical, but overhead lights are bad and distractions are really bad. So like emailing from your bed goes into that as well. And there's a fascinating study that was done in Colorado, shout out where I live, with people who claim that they were night owls and they couldn't go to bed at a normal time. And they took them camping and made them sleep outside. And by like day 2, they were going to bed at a normal time. Yeah. And again, there's lots going on. There could be stress, there could be caffeine, there could be all kinds of stuff. But generally speaking, we all manufacture this environment where like we're constantly turning the lights on and stressing ourselves out and doing dishes and checking emails. And if you can just wind down at night and turn off most of your lights and just relax, you will be amazed at how much better you can sleep. And that is, again, a proven phenomenon. So I'm not trying to say maybe you are in the less than 1% of people who can't fall asleep at 10 p.m., but I highly doubt it. I think there are some tweaks that you can make, and I know it's hard, so just pick a couple steps and you will see.
I'm a big candle person. Dim the lights, turn them off, light some candles. Like, it just feels cozy, it feels nice. It's really good to do that.
I love it. Well, we could do this all day. If you have more sleep questions, message me or Kat. We're equally credentialed, as we talked about. And hopefully this is helpful. Call in, let us know. We don't have any official sleep challenges, but we do have some new challenges coming up soon where we will cover things like strength, nutrition, other good habits, which of course impact your sleep. So if you're looking for more accountability on your sleep, you can join one of our challenges, which we plug in next week's episode. And in the meantime, you can join our incredible Alta Life community where we will continue to share tips. You can find it on WhatsApp. The link is in the show notes, or you can find the link in our bios on Instagram. And you can follow Kat at CatBestWellness, and you can follow me at Andrew Hayes Life. Join our Alta Life community. Kat, anything else you want to mention about sleep?
I don't think so. I just think everybody needs to take ownership and accountability for your sleep, because it's really up to you if you wanted to, improve or not. Like, it really is up to you. No one else is going to put in the work to make you sleep better. You have to do it.
Yeah, I actually do want to touch on that. Thank you for reminding me of the last thing. Kat, you've coached more parents than I have, so you count as a parent in my book. But just in case there are parents listening who want to throw out the excuse of like, when my kids wake me up, I totally get it. And listen, if you're a new mom and you're nursing at 2 a.m, like, this episode's just not for you. Just hang in there and revisit this in a few months. But other than that, if your kids are 2 or 10 or 20, these still apply. Are you going to have an uninterrupted 8 to 10 hours of sleep every single night? No. Your kids get sick, they wake you up, your dog, whatever. There's always something going on, but you can still do everything in your power to maximize your sleep on the good nights or maximize the sleep time that you do get. And so if I have a nighttime wake up, which happens at least once a week, I know I'm going to be able to go back to sleep. I know the other 6 nights are good. There is a such thing as sleep debt, which is exactly what it sounds like. So if you are letting this pile up night after night, it's going to feel a lot worse than just happening to you once. So yes, it is very hard being a parent. Yes, we coach many parents, but it is still your responsibility to help. And these will make a big difference to lessen that impact of being woken up by someone in your house.
Exactly. Quality, not quantity necessarily.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Follow us on Instagram. Join our community. Stay tuned for the next episode. Sleep well, everybody.
Bye, guys.